They say one man's trash is another man's treasure, but in this case, the trash is actually worth $400 million. And Parker SCHNABEL just found it deep in the wilderness, hidden under layers of dirt and rust. He discovered an abandoned Trommel, a massive gold processing machine that hadn't been touched in decades. But it wasn't empty inside. Parker found gold, lots of it, enough to make history. So, how does something this valuable get left behind? And more importantly, what does Parker plan to do with this once-in-a-lifetime jackpot? At first glance, the Trommel looked like nothing more than a pile of rusting metal swallowed by the forest. It was covered in grime, surrounded by thick vegetation, and looked like it had been abandoned for a very, very long time. But Parker and his team knew better. This wasn't just any old piece of equipment, it was a beast. Back in its prime, this gigantic steel drum processed massive amounts of dirt every single day, separating out nuggets and tiny specks of gold. But unlike today's advanced mining machines, this Trommel wasn't built for precision. It was all about power and volume. It churned through tons of material, but its old-school design meant a lot of gold was lost in the process. Instead of capturing everything, fine gold dust had slipped through the cracks and mixed with the dirt. And here's where things get crazy, because all that lost gold had been sitting there for decades, completely untouched. For years, there had been rumors about an abandoned mining site in the area. Some local miners claimed it had once been part of a major operation that ran out of money and had to shut down. Others believed the site held untouched, gold-rich dirt, but no one had ever dared to go looking. That all changed when Parker arrived. As he climbed onto the Trommel and brushed away the grime, something caught his eye, a tiny flicker of shiny metal. At first, he thought it was just a trick of the light, but as he looked closer, his heart started racing. This was gold. And not just a few flakes, this was a serious amount of gold trapped inside the old machine. Parker knew right away this was no ordinary find, but there was a massive problem. The Trommel wasn't just broken, it was completely wrecked. Years of exposure to the elements had left it rusted, jammed, and barely standing. If Parker wanted to pull any gold out of this site, he and his team had to bring the entire machine back from the dead. And that was no small task. The first challenge was figuring out how to move the colossal Trommel without causing even more damage. This thing was built like a tank, massive, heavy, and completely stuck in place. But time hadn't been kind to it. The metal was corroded, the frame was fragile, and one wrong move could cause the whole thing to collapse. Getting it out of the dense wilderness and into a workable location was a logistical nightmare. It took every bit of engineering know-how and sheer determination just to get it transported safely. But that was only the beginning. Once they had it in position, the real work began. Every single part needed attention. The gears were so worn down they could barely turn. The screens were clogged with years of dirt and debris. And the steel drum, the heart of the entire machine, was barely holding itself together. It was a complete overhaul from top to bottom. And the pressure was on. With each passing day, the team faced new setbacks. Parts were impossible to find. Rusted bolts refused to budge, and the clock was ticking. The entire operation depended on getting this Trommel running again. Failure simply wasn't an option. Parker refused to back down. He knew what was at stake. After days of sweat, struggle, and relentless effort, something incredible happened. The Trommel roared back to life. As the massive machine finally started turning again, the team expected good results. But what they found was beyond anything they had imagined. While clearing the area around the Trommel, they came across something hidden beneath layers of dirt and debris, an untouched stockpile of old pay dirt. It looked ordinary at first, but when they tested it for gold, the results were staggering. The concentration of gold in this forgotten pile was off the charts, way higher than anything Parker had ever mined before. This was no small find. This was a potential gold mine, just sitting there, waiting to be processed. Parker knew he had to act fast. He didn't have time to build a full-scale wash plant, so he set up a temporary processing station, combining classic mining techniques with modern equipment. This time, he wasn't leaving anything to chance. Every speck of gold was going to be recovered. And the results? Absolutely insane. Day after day, the gold kept piling up. The totals climbed higher and higher, and before long, Parker realized he wasn't just pulling a good haul, He had stumbled onto one of the biggest gold finds of his entire career. The sheer amount of gold recovered sent the value skyrocketing into the millions. What started as a desperate attempt to revive a broken machine had turned into an absolute jackpot. But just when Parker thought this discovery couldn't get any bigger, he and his team found something even more unbelievable. As the team dug deeper, both into the land and the history of the site, they uncovered something that changed everything. Buried within a collection of old mining records, they found a series of documents that hinted at an even greater secret. These weren't just random notes, they were detailed logs mapping out a hidden network of abandoned gold-rich sites, and they all traced back to this very Trommel. The more they studied the records, the clearer it became. This Trommel wasn't just another piece of old mining equipment. It was part of a much larger operation, one that had been lost to time. The logs described locations with insanely high gold concentrations, areas that had been left untouched for decades. It was like discovering a treasure map, leading to a fortune that had been sitting in plain sight all along. Parker couldn't believe what he was looking at. If these records were correct, then this Trommel was just the tip of the iceberg. Who knew how much more gold was still out there, buried beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered? And now Parker had the key to finding it. The hunt was far from over. This was just the beginning. But before chasing after new gold-rich sites, Parker had to bring the Trommel back to life. And that meant restoring a piece of history. Each dent, every rusted gear, every worn-down panel told a story of miners long gone, people who had battled against the harsh elements, driven by dreams of striking it rich. The Trommel had been through years of brutal use, filtering through thousands of tons of dirt, sand, and rock. It was clear this machine had once been an unstoppable force in gold mining. Parker wasn't taking any chances. He brought in specialists to handle the restoration. Every repair had to be done perfectly, because one small mistake could jeopardize the entire operation. Hours turned into days, and days turned into weeks, as they worked tirelessly to rebuild the Trommel piece by piece. And then, finally, the beast roared back to life. Watching the fully restored Trommel in action was nothing short of breathtaking. It processed dirt with shocking efficiency, separating gold nuggets and fine particles with incredible speed. It wasn't just a mining machine anymore, it was a symbol of forgotten potential, brought back from the dead. Parker's team knew the hardest part was ahead. Bringing an old mining beast back to life wasn't just about finding gold. It was about digging deeper, uncovering what had been left behind, both the gold and the history. In gold mining, most people focus on what's right in front of them. But sometimes, the real treasure is buried in the past. That's exactly what happened when they rediscovered the old piece of mining equipment, the Trommel. It was a massive machine built to separate gold from dirt and rocks. Back in the day, it was an engineering marvel, but as technology improved, machines like this were left behind, rusting away in forgotten mining camps. But Parker didn't see a useless hunk of metal. He saw opportunity. This wasn't just some broken-down machine. It was a sleeping giant, waiting to be woken up. Deep in the wilderness, in a place that was once packed with gold prospectors, Parker's team found the Trommel buried under layers of dirt and overgrowth. Most people would have walked right past it. But Parker knew better. Old mining machines like this often trapped gold in their sediment. Gold that had never been recovered. This wasn't just a long-shot project. It was a calculated risk with the potential for huge rewards. Getting the Trommel out of the wilderness was a challenge on its own. It was massive, weighing tons and completely stuck in place. The team had to bring in heavy-duty cranes, trucks, and an army of experts just to move it. Every step of the way was a gamble, but they knew it was worth it. Once they finally got the Trommel to the workshop, the real work began. Years of rust had to be scrubbed away. Old, worn-out parts had to be replaced. But this wasn't just about fixing the machine. It was about upgrading it. Outdated gears were swapped for high-tech replacements. A brand new motor was installed. Advanced sensors were added. What was once a clunky old machine was now a modern gold mining powerhouse. To make sure everything ran smoothly, the team built a digital twin of the Trommel using 3D modeling software. This virtual version let them test upgrades and fix problems before making real changes, saving both time and money. They also used drones to map out the best gold-rich areas, scanning the ground with pinpoint accuracy to find the ideal places to dig. With the Trommel up and running, the results were incredible. It pulled gold from the dirt more efficiently than anyone expected, turning what had once been abandoned into a gold-producing machine. But more than that, it proved something bigger. Sometimes the best treasure isn't just gold. It's knowing where to look, taking risks, and seeing value where others see nothing. Parker's team had done more than revive an old machine. They'd tapped into a forgotten part of mining history and turned it into one of their biggest successes. And now, with the Trommel back in action, one question remained. How much more treasure was still out there, just waiting to be found? When the day finally came to fire up the Trommel, the pressure was sky high. Would this old beast still have what it takes, or was it just a giant hunk of scrap? The massive drum roared to life. Dirt and debris poured in, and then gold started flowing out. And not just a little, the numbers were staggering. The Trommel pulled in millions of dollars worth of gold, far more than anyone had expected. The risk had paid off in a massive way. This wasn't just some forgotten machine. It was a gold mine in disguise, literally. But then something weird happened. One side of the Trommel was producing way more gold than the other. That wasn't normal. If gold was building up in one area but barely coming through on the other, something was definitely off. Was there a flaw in the setup? A mechanical issue? Or was it a sign of something even bigger? The team had to figure it out, fast. This whole project wasn't just about striking it rich. It changed the way people thought about mining. All of a sudden, forgotten machinery wasn't just junk. Maybe the past still had a few tricks up its sleeve. Miners, engineers, and even history buffs started digging, literally and figuratively, through archives, trying to track down old equipment that might still have some life left in it. It was like a mini gold rush, but this time, for forgotten machines. But the thing is, this wasn't just about nostalgia. Parker's team had set a new standard for mining by taking old equipment and upgrading it with modern technology. They recovered gold way more efficiently while cutting down on environmental damage. That earned them respect, not just from other miners, but from local communities too. At the end of the day, the restored Trommel became more than just a working machine. It was a symbol, a reminder that history still has plenty of secrets waiting to be uncovered. This wasn't just about digging up gold. It was about digging into the past and proving that sometimes the best treasures aren't the ones you expect to find. The team's success proved one thing. Bold ideas and perseverance can turn even the rustiest old relics into gold-producing powerhouses. What started as a risky experiment ended up rewriting the rules of mining. The once-forgotten Trommel became a symbol of determination, creativity, and vision. A reminder that sometimes the biggest treasures aren't just buried underground, but hidden in the past itself. This discovery wasn't just about striking gold. It was about changing the way people think about mining. Abandoned machines, once considered worthless, suddenly became time capsules of untapped potential. The industry was forced to reconsider its approach. What else had been left behind that could still hold immense value? This wasn't just a victory for Parker's team, it was a wake-up call for the entire mining world. The restored Trommel didn't just pull in gold, it did so with far less waste and environmental damage than traditional methods. It challenged the outdated idea that mining has to come at the cost of the planet. And the best part? This was just the beginning. The Trommel's revival sparked interest in old mining technology, inspiring others to look beyond modern machines and explore how past innovations could still be useful today. With AI, automation, and cutting-edge mapping tools, old mining sites were being re-examined. Previously overlooked deposits were being discovered. At the end of the day, the Trommel wasn't just a machine. It was proof that history and innovation can work together to create something extraordinary.